Okay. Going into slideshow mode. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the Smart Automated Testing for Oracle J.D. Edwards EnterpriseOne session. I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not sure how long we'll actually run. Just see how we go. Talking about J.D. Edwards EnterpriseOne and testing, those sorts of things. So let's just get into this. Roll forward. I'm Pat Neary. I've got a global sales and marketing responsibility here at DWS. I do sales, marketing, business development, channel sort of stuff. And as a company, we're helping, been helping companies and systems integrators work with EnterpriseOne. Also some cloud apps and some other things as well. I've been at DWS for just over 6 years, and all told, I've been in the software industry. I totted it up this morning when I was updating my slides. Almost 39 years. It'll be 40 years in a bit, which is kind of surprising. I'll probably go back actually and find out I've miscalculated. But anyways, I think it's 39 years. I've done all kinds of different jobs, from development to consulting to consulting management and sales management, selling and marketing, all of those sorts of things. I've been in and around the J.D. Edwards, PeopleSoft, and Oracle communities for around 25 years in total. I was with Oracle up to about 2009, and then I went off and did a few other things for a while before coming back and joining J.D. Edwards. I've been in the UK for quite a number of years. I'm actually an American that moved here and live just outside of London. I've got a family here and consider this to be my home nowadays. So it's late in the evening for me, 10 o'clock. I know you guys are about 5 o'clock on the East Coast and 3 hours earlier than that on the West Coast, if anybody's joining us. I've put my email address here. And it's at the end of the presentation as well, but that's where you can find me. And our website is www.dws-global.com. So that's a little bit about me. So let's talk about what we're going to do, during this session. I'm going to, introduce DWS and Logigear briefly. I'm going to talk about the testing landscape as I see it. I'm going to talk about packaged software projects, Dimension testing products, which is the suite of testing products that we've gone to market with as DWS. And I'm going to talk about enterprise application testing and testing services. So we're going to finish talking about the hashtag TestSmart bullet point, just kind of as a wrap up. For those of you who've seen us at events and follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see us using the hashtag TestSmart marker, and that's how I wanted to just summarize things, and then we'll go into a Q&A. So if you've got questions and that you want answers to, what we'll do is at the end, I'll bounce from this presentation across to the Pathable page, and there's a chat window in the Pathable page, which you would have opened in your browser to come into this session here. So that'll be there. So I encourage you to put thoughts, comments down. And after the session, if there's any sort of follow-up or anything you want, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll go from there. So hopefully, this is broadly in line with what everybody was expecting, and we'll spark some thoughts and potentially even discussion at the very end of the session, as we go. So let's take a deep breath and introduce DWS. We're an Oracle Gold partner. We were formed in 1998. For the vast majority of our existence, we've been a development and technical services company that's really specialized in J.D. Edwards EnterpriseOne. We're We've done lots of modifications for people in interfacing, orchestrations and that sort of stuff in recent times. And we have some proprietary IP in and around code base analysis and retrofitting. And we have a range of services to help people get current and stay current. We do, the technical development parts of upgrades and code current change event sorts of projects and stuff as a services business. But we're also a software vendor. I guess it's probably 7 or 8 years ago that the guys here identified an opportunity to help companies in the JD Edwards EnterpriseOne community, that's end customers as well as systems integrators, tackle the testing problem. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the testing opportunity and the value of testing and all of that sort of stuff. It's not something I intend to do here. We had a session earlier today, actually, where we did a fair bit of that. My colleague, one of the guys that worked for me, Tyler Price, presented that sort of information a bit earlier. So if anybody wants to go watch that sort of thing on demand, interested in that sort of stuff, there's more information and material available there. We're not a big company. I think we like to think that we punch above our weight. We have a global customer base, and we've done, I'd like to say it's hundreds of projects, but it's probably tens into the hundreds. If I'm realistic, and we've got people dotted around the globe, developing our products, and also providing those development technical services that I briefly talked about a minute ago. DWS was acquired by Logigear Corporation at the beginning of this year. I'll talk about Logigear next a little bit, just to get a sense as to who they are and what they do. But with Logigear now, DWS is in a position where we can provide additional development services. We can do development, full stack, development, full cycle development on, of just about anything now. And additionally, we have a testing service capability. With the testing products that we developed, for the last, 6 years, we've sold those products and encouraged and helped end customers use those products to advantage, on their products. And similarly, done the same with systems integrators, helping systems integrators sell testing services and those sorts of things. But it's really exciting that, we're part of a bigger company now. We've got a whole bunch of resources available to us in the US as well as in Vietnam. And we can, talk to companies about things that we previously weren't able to talk about. So Logigear is a, as I said, is a group where they're headquartered in San Mateo in California, with large delivery centers, 3 large delivery centers in Vietnam, and those centers are doing development work for people, as well as providing testing services. And those services range from the implementation and setup of test automation solutions. They can work with any testing technologies that are available in the marketplace. Obviously, they're now able to work and are getting skilled up and doing projects in the JD Edwards space with Swift Test. But they can test with other technologies, and they can test with a product that they have, which I'll talk about a little bit later, called Test Architect. And because they do development and testing, they're pretty capable, from a DevOps advice, guidance, and delivery perspective. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, the continuous innovation, continuous delivery pipeline sort of conversation, CI/CD, DevOps, DevSecOps sort of space. But that's kind of the world that the Logic Gear people and Logic Gear companies sort of been living and breathing. They're of a similar age to us. I think they may be a little bit younger. I think they may be about 20 some odd years old, as opposed to just about 25. We're almost 25 years. But that's a little bit about DWS. Well, it's a little bit about me, about DWS, and about Logic Gear. So let's get into the testing landscape. I don't know how familiar you guys are, but I spent a fair bit of time looking at trying to understand, reading, and discussing and debating exactly what's going on in and around software testing. And software testing, as a broad church, is really big business. Anybody who's looked at it, probably recognize that there's different approaches to testing. You've got waterfall methodologies, agile methodologies, and the like. And in the context of any sort of project, if you will, whether it's a development project or a package implementation project, there's all different kinds of testing that actually can and should be done. Functional testing, non-functional testing, and I won't go through and break down all of that. Sort of things that are here on this top right-hand side chart. I just wanted to put it up there kind of as an example, and point out that it's a really crowded space as well. Across the bottom, I've listed, I did a bit of a search and just came up with this scroll bar of companies that sell software testing tools. And you can scan through those and you may recognize one or two of those. And of course, I think if you scan far enough around, you may find Logic Gear's Test Architect product and DWS's testing products as well. Although, having said that, I didn't actually do that to see whether that comes up on that bar or not. But the point is that it's there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of energy being expended in trying to help people improve the way they do their testing, and to ensure quality. One of the things that gets talked about a lot recently in recent times is this whole concept of shift left testing. Trying to bring testing as far forward in the process as possible. And you'll often see shift left testing and DevOps, discussed together. In the JD Edwards world, when we do, package builds and promotions and all of that sort of stuff, that's all guided, by object OMW and the like. But most enterprise customers have more than just JD Edwards. They have a more complex landscape, and they may, be using some, tools in and around, DevOps, to help them manage those processes and look after, the quality of the software that's being delivered. And in a DevOps pipeline, you'll not only have promotions and those sorts of things going on, but you'll also have testing, and it can range from unit testing to system testing to stress volume, load type testing, and all that stuff can all be built into pipelines. But it's kind of cool, that whole space, and it's quite interesting if you like that sort of stuff. But this whole shift left thing kind of highlights, for me, one of the issues that we have as people that are invested in and are trying to look after as best we can JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. You can only go so far left, with a package like JD Edwards. We're angling, if you think about shift left testing to test absolutely everything as early as possible, and you want to be testing all of the time, and you want to involve testers in all of the stages. of a project. And the idea is to prevent problems, rather than detect problems. But as I read more about some of this stuff, and I think about some of the materials that are available, it's pretty clear to me that the context of what we're talking, of the context of our situation is really quite important. It's relevant, because if you think about it, Oracle will tell you, and we all know that they do tons and tons and tons of testing. They're continuously testing as part of the development processes, and whenever they package and release ESUs or releases like release 23, they're taking all of the software that's available for us to pick up and use through a full-blown DevOps pipeline, and they're making sure that it's of the highest quality from Oracle's perspective. The issue that we have is that something like JD Edwards is highly configurable. There's it's not an infinite number of combinations of things that can exist within an implementation, but if you implement a lot of modules and they're all integrated, and you think about all of the processing options and everything else that can go on, there's just no end of variables that could conceivably be tested. So as end customers, we always test as well, and that testing, the testing that we can do is different. We can't unit test in the same way that a developer does, because we're getting code, we're getting objects, that can be run to meet particular business requirements. And, the only thing we really can do is configure the software during the implementation, or during an upgrade or during an update. We can enhance and extend the software and do modifications. And we need to test those. And when we do extensions and enhancements and the like, we can shift left, because the people that are doing the development can do some of the testing, and we can start to think about what that testing needs to look like, and get at it really early. But it's not quite the same, when you're dealing with development type testing. It's different. Your starting point is a bit different. What you're able to do is a bit different when you've got a fully formed package like JD Edwards, and what you're doing is configuring and defining how you're going to populate the data fields and use the databases and all that other sort of stuff. So it's kind of interesting, and the takeaway from this brief look at testing, is that testing as part of the software development cycle is not the same as testing as part of package software implementation or package update or update project. And I think that's kind of an interesting starting point. And as you think about and look at and research the options that are available to you, and consider the tools and the techniques, and the approaches, you do need to recognize that there are different approaches and different things that you may or may not want to do, because you're working with a package, and not just developing software and trying to deliver quality software in the same way Oracle does. All right, so that's that bit on the software testing. What I wanted to talk about next was, the package software project. We sort of said that we need to do testing differently, when it comes to package software. And with package software projects, I've been involved in lots and lots and lots of projects over the years, and I'm not going to talk about all the different methodologies, different implementation type methodologies and all of that, because I think that's probably been done a million times. But what I wanted to do is sort of distill this down to three things that I think are fundamentally important to any methodology and any successful implementation. And I sort of jokingly, I've talked about this off and on for a number of years to a number of different people, and I've never actually created a slide, with these 3 things on it. But I've sort of talked about this concept of the holy triangle of documentation, the holy documentation triangle, and you sort of think about a project, and every single package implementation project that I've worked on, involves a lot of scoping, planning, etc., and then no end of time and effort in trying to understand the business processes and how the software are going to support the business processes that are implemented. And that's where the lion's share of time and energy goes, in terms of gap fit and all of that sort of stuff is all around documentation of the processes. And any project, I will suggest any good project, is backed up, by either brand new process documents or process documents, that reflect the changes that are being implemented as a result of, new software that's coming in, updated software that's coming in, additional modules or what have you. But those process documents don't stand on their own. The process documents and an understanding of the processes that are being supported by the software and the configuration of the software need to be sort of married up with or faced off with test cases and scripts and training materials. And you can go around, you can go round and round these things. You can look at the test scripts and kind of back into the process documentation. And you can look at the training materials and back into the test scripts. But there's a high degree of correlation, between what you're trying to capture here. And I don't think you can implement and look after an implementation of JD Edwards without at least one of these being really, really good or excellent. And ideally 3 of them being, all 3 of them being quite good. And, we're clearly vested when we talk about testing in the test cases and test scripts sort of side of things. So, this triangle of documentation is fundamental because, when you look at a successful project nowadays, we're delivering to meet or exceed expectations. We want to do that on time and on budget, and we want to make sure that what we've done, is really well documented. And the reason we need to think in those terms, we need to think about success in those terms, is because nowadays, especially, each successful project is a springboard, for delivering on the promise of continuous innovation. I know, days gone by, you do a big project, you wait 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and then do an upgrade. But now, we see much more frequently, with the customers we work with and the systems integrators that we work with, that, companies are taking advantage of, update 4, 5, 6, release 22, release 23. And there is a cadence of continuous adoption, continuous innovation, that companies are working towards. More and more companies definitely are doing that, and I think it's quite fundamental. But in this successful project picture, and when we think about testing as part of this, the test scripts are going to not only get created during well documented, created and proven during a good implementation, they get used over and over again in concurrent update, change update projects, and that's quite important. So let's talk a little bit about how DWS is helping companies take advantage of the work they're doing, from a process definition and documentation perspective, to move on from there to actually script and automate the testing. Because that's where the payback is. And when we talk about smart automated testing, it's trying to bring those things together. You will see and hear people talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and all sorts of other stuff, in and around testing. The solutions that take advantage of those today only get you close to where you want to be, in our experience, with the exposure and the experience that we have. The only way you're really going to get what you want is to do the hard work, that looks at the process documentation and the kind of training that you need to do with your end users, and creates test scripts that, enables you to satisfy yourself that the software is performing and is set up the way that it should be in order to meet, your end user business requirements. So what we're doing with our suite of testing products is trying to help people, introduce and work very consistent and repeatable fashion, and reliable fashion. And by doing so, we're reducing risk, we're improving quality and accuracy, the testing that gets done. Not only we're improving the quality and accuracy, we're probably able to, improve the amount of testing that we're doing. If you're not having to, if the software, if you will, is doing the work, because it's automatic. You need to spend time and energy to define what that work is, what those tests are. But once you've done that, you can do more testing. And you don't have to work as hard to do the testing over and over and over again. You're easing the burden, you're reducing the amount of testing effort that's required. And I probably should actually add that word to this slide, because it's not a reduction in the amount of testing. You're reducing the amount of effort that's required. And what you're getting, from a business's perspective, you guys as IT project people, can be seen, to be improving and modernizing the way that you, look after the software and run projects. And you should be able to run more, smaller, faster, and smarter projects. I mean, that's what continuous innovation, continuous adoption looks like. And if you sort of equate, what JD Edwards looks like in the eyes of, your user community, you can make it look and feel like a SaaS product. The competitive SaaS products. We work with Oracle Cloud Apps, and one of the testing products that we'll talk about today is works for Oracle Fusion Cloud Apps as well as for JD Edwards. But with the work that we're doing in the Oracle Cloud App space, it's clear that this quarterly update cycles that they have, they enforce, they almost mandate, continuous adoption. And continuous adoption is a gateway to continuous innovation. And that's what the business gets and what you get by changing the way you run projects and enabling, this smarter testing sort of thing. Obviously, from a project manager perspective, you spend less time, effort, cost, hassle. You're more thorough, you're more accurate. The tester gets, when we talk about scripting and automation, they get a catalog of scripts and queues that reflects the way the software has been implemented. And they get, a platform that allows them, to stage and consume data. And staging and consuming data testing data is really important when you think about, multi-company, multi-country, multi-region sort of implementation of JD Edwards, especially because a lot of what you do in different areas is probably the same. What changes, there are subtle changes in processes and those sorts of things, but what changes mostly is the data, the companies, the warehouses, the attributes, the customers and the suppliers, and maybe even some of the products. But you're creating assets, test assets, that are really usable and of real value. They reinforce and reflect the processes that you documented and implemented. And if processes change, you've got testing assets, that you can change to bring in line. And the tooling that we've created, for scripting and automation makes those kinds of processes and change and maintenance sort of activity very, very easy. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But you get, when you do the testing, we do testing within projects. When you do testing on a project, you get automatically gold standard documentation. It's very thorough, it's complete, and it's accurate. It reflects exactly what you've done. And you get a picture, project after project. You do an update, 22, an update 23, all of the testing that you've done, is fully documented and saved within a project folder for you guys to look at, with a good test automation system. And you get a lot of benefits because when you have a system that's automatically running tests, you're saving in terms of the test execution time. It's faster for the computer to perform a transaction than it is for me to look at a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet and try and figure out what steps I'm supposed to perform with what data. And you get a massive savings there. But beyond the executional savings, because you're a lot of the testing that you do is similar and test, change, and maintained, or you need to create tests that are variations of a theme. You get a massive savings in terms of test creation and maintenance. If I have 10 different variations of a journal entry, or 30 different sales order types, the test scripts are largely going to be the same. You're just going to tweak and tune things, and you can create usable assets very, very quickly. And those usable assets deliver a return on your investment in the project that you're working on right now, but then also in all of those code current change event projects that are going to follow. So we have 3 products in our suite, that we've gone to market with. The left to right, the first one is called Dimension Swift Test. Then we have Dimension Focus and then there's a Dimension Load Test product. The Swift Test product is the product that we've made work with Oracle Fusion Cloud applications as well as JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. All 3 of these products, have been written specifically for JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. And they leverage our experience and IP as a partner in the community for so long. When we talk about Dimension Focus, we're talking about a highly analytic solution, which helps people understand business change. And by understanding the change, that's incoming with software, we're able to inform and better plan projects and able to ensure that we're only testing what needs to be tested. Remember, testing, unit testing, system testing, integration testing is almost always followed by user acceptance testing. And I don't think anyone will suggest that you don't want users to get hands-on and sign off projects. So understanding exactly what needs to be discussed with end users and how to prepare them to do the acceptance testing and things is facilitated by Dimension Focus. Swift Test is sort of the engine room where we script and automate the testing. And we'll talk about that a bit more. And I can point you guys to our website where we've got videos of the demonstration of that software and all that. But then we also have a load test solution, where we can simulate, what for in many manual test environments is sort of that pizza weekend kind of situation. And that's there for people as well. We've written these, to be used by business analysts, super users, and subject matter experts, consultants. It's not, our intention was and always has been to make sure that the people that normally make up a project team, on a JD Edwards implementation, can use the software, can get value from the software. There are a lot of testing tools out there, where you do need to be a programmer. There's no two ways about it. You need to be technical. You may not need to be technical in the first instance. You may be able to create a script without any code or anything like that. But the minute you want to change it or do something different or copy it or what have you, you probably have to get technical. We've made sure that that never happens. It really is properly a developer-free zone. All of the stuff that we've created and made available is intended to be used by people that make up typical project teams, because we want testing to become part of the fabric of automated testing, to become part of the fabric of every single project. And we want these sorts of characters to be comfortable, scripting and running tests, with our Dimension Swift Test product. That's what our thing was. When we talk about beyond the products and we think about what else DWS can do nowadays, we sort of bring in this idea that we can provide testing services. So let's talk about testing services and what we're really dealing with. And, the reality is JD Edwards is not an island unto itself. JD Edwards integrates with lots of different systems, whether it's barcode scanning, supply chain type things, warehouse management, type things, storefronts, whatever. There's integrations, and we've got to be able to test more, than just JD Edwards potentially. Now, for many customers, that's not a problem, because 80 to 90% of what's important is JD Edwards, and if they can automate 75% of everything that gets done in JD Edwards, and manually test the rest of the stuff, they're going to be in a pretty good shape. But there are companies with complex enterprise applications landscapes, where we do want to test more. And as parts of LogicGear now, we are able to help people test just about anything, and we can test pretty much everything. We're interested in what's beyond JD Edwards now, whereas previously with just the product, we wanted to help people test JD Edwards. We can broaden the conversation now, and we can add more value to you, and potentially take some of the testing burden away from you. You may not want to test, and you may want to give the testing problem to the likes of DWS. We're in a position to do that now. So we've got 700 plus service delivery resources. As I mentioned, the vast majority of those are in Vietnam, and they're providing testing as a service, and they're doing manual and automated testing. And they're also doing that DevOps consulting that I mentioned earlier. Now, with Swift Test, I mentioned, the work we do with systems integrators, and the fact that systems integrators are selling testing services, to people within the JD Edwards community, and they're taking advantage of Swift Test to do that. We do the same thing as LogicGear, and LogicGear takes advantage of a product that they've written called Test Architect, to enable and deliver their testing services. And Test Architect is a saleable product as well. So that's something that we can bring into the mix for people if they want to look beyond just testing JD Edwards with Dimension Swift Test, and bring Test Architect into the mix and solve a wider problem. And in recent months, I'm talking to a number of our bigger customers about some of the integrations and some of that integration type testing that needs to be done, and we're doing proof of concept work and some of those sorts of things in and around JD Edwards, and looking beyond just JD Edwards itself. So to wrap up, I'm kind of half an eye on the clock. We're coming up to that 20 minutes too. I said I'd do about 40 minutes, and then we'll get into some questions. We've got this summary section, that I entitled, the Test Smart. The whole presentation is sort of built around this idea of, smarter automated testing. I think when you think about testing, it's quite, and you think about introducing test automation, it can be quite daunting. I've had I don't know how many conversations in the last 5 years with companies that are excited about the prospect of automating their testing, and they love what Swift test, they love the way Swift test looks, feels, and what it can do. But to actually take it on board and make it part of the project that they're working on, feels a bit daunting. And we're changing the way projects get run. We're doing something different than we may have done previously. If you've never automated testing, or if you tried to automate and you failed, you need to reload and try again. But you need to be practical. You need to try and eat the elephant, one bite at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. It's not realistic to think that you're going to automate all of your testing. You're not. Automating testing is, in part about being smart, and picking and choosing where you're going to get value. There are certain programs and certain processes, that you probably test, 5, 10, 15, 20 times during a project. Those are the ones that are worth automating. The ones that, don't happen that often. And you may only test once during a project or twice during a project. Why bother to automate those? So you need to be smart about that. And I think that's a real key sort of takeaway. There's never a perfect time or a right time to get started. You just have to get started, because you'll get better at it, and you'll become more sophisticated and advanced, and you'll get more value as you get more familiar with the tools and the way the tools can support the processes that you've implemented within the organization. And every organization is different. And that speaks to this point here, where when we talk to people about taking the software on, we talk about commitment, executive commitment, and increasingly we're talking about doing the right thing. There's a number of ways that you can script, write a script. Everything can be the process, and the data can be hard coded. That may be good enough for a lot of what you want to do, but there's sophistication and capability, that allows us to separate the process and the data. And you can do some of that, and you can do it in a light way, or you can do it in a more full-blown way. So there's grades of sophistication, that we can talk about and that we can think about as we try and take on test automation. And to realize the promise of, the value of test automation. And a lot of what I've talked about, I talked about the DWS testing products, but these concepts and the principles apply to any, any product or package that that you might be looking at. But Swift test, is as I say, is probably the flagship. And the most frequently talked about product within our portfolio, because scripting and automation is at the heart of what we do. The scripts that we write for functional regression type testing, happily can be taken advantage of, with our load test solution. So you get a bounce and benefit from doing a good job of functional regression type test scripting. You can leverage what you've done in that space and do the load testing thing. And none of this stuff is particularly challenging or complex. You remember, we've written this for the business analyst, the super user, the subject matter expert. And because we've done that, and we realize these people have other jobs and they do other things, they may not be full-time doing testing, they're not test professionals necessarily. We invested and created in a learning academy, so any one of the users of our software gets access to online training materials, to help them get the most out of the software, as they're learning. And then after they've learned, and they've got a bunch of assets that they can pick up and use to during testing on a project. If they see something that not familiar with, or they want to look at how they might do something else, they can revisit those training materials and pick that up and continue to get the most out of the software. But you've always got to be thinking about, what's right for you. And, your systems integrator might be able to help you with that decision, those decisions of discussion, or we can. As DWS, we do a lot of hand-holding with, we do hand-holding and onboarding with all of our new customers. And we try and make sure that people understand what all of these levels of sophistication are, and are able to have a conversation, with us and amongst themselves as to what level of sophistication should be implemented in different areas where testing and automation is being done. This is the key thing to achieving success and actually testing smarter, is to take advantage of this sort of stuff. So I'm going to close, with an offer, to pick this conversation up with any of you. Reach out to us, me specifically, if you want to. We'd love to have a conversation. If you just want to spend time thinking about what you do and what you might want to do, we can tap into some resources that have a lot of experience and can look at your enterprise application landscape, look at what kind of testing you're doing. Where are you testing automatically? Where are you testing manually? Where are opportunities for improvement? Those sort of things. We do a free preliminary exercise, which can lead on to a which might lead on to a paid audit, or may lead on to you guys saying, oh, well, actually, we don't need to spend more time thinking about it. We just want to try and use some of the products. And if you want to use a product, they're available. Dimension Swift Test is available for free, 30-day trial, no obligation trial. We'll support you through that process. And similarly, the Test Architect product that I mentioned, that the Logic Gear consulting team used, is available as well, free download sort of thing, and we'll support you and help you guys get comfortable with with the values of these sorts of things. So with that, I'm going to roll forward one more time, and this, I thought up at the top over on the right hand side it said Q&A, but the Q&A is obviously not showing. So this is my question and answer slide. And I'm going to keep sharing, and I'm going to look for questions that have been submitted. There aren't any in the Zoom chat, but I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go across and look at my web browser and see if there's any questions over in the web browser section. And there aren't any questions there either. So I'm not going to sort of expand or elaborate on anything here in the absence of questions. I'll just thank everyone for taking time to join us today. And for those of you that have joined us live, great. Thank you for that. For those of you who are listening to this, after the fact on demand, thanks for finding us and and looking at that material. And obviously, if you've heard it live and people that might want to be interested in what we've said, on demand, please share these details with us, and don't hesitate to reach out to myself, patrick.neary@dws-global.com. And with that, I'm going to thank everyone and give everyone 9 minutes back. We're not going to get all the way to the top of the hour. We'll give everyone 9 minutes back, and we'll hopefully have cause to speak about what you guys are doing in terms of testing and what you want to do in terms of automating your testing sometime in the future. Thank you very much. I'll say good day, good night, and all of that sort of stuff, and we'll hopefully speak soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.